Welcome back to my YouTube channel, LC Coins World, where we travel back in time through the history of coins, uncovering their stories and values. Today, we will dive deep into the fascinating history of the 1978 Washington $quarter, a coin that for many of us was simply an everyday piece of change, but which today carries historical weight and emotional value beyond its face worth. The story of the Washington quarter begins long before 1978, taking us back to 1932 when the United States was preparing to celebrate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. The country wanted a lasting tribute to the man who had led the fight for independence and become the first president of the United States at a time when the Great Depression was weighing heavily on the nation. The idea of replacing the standing Liberty quarter with a design featuring Washington himself was met with great enthusiasm. The final design chosen for the coin was created by sculptor John Flanagan and featured a left-facing profile of George Washington on the obverse with the word Liberty arched above and the national motto, "In God We Trust." To the left, the reverse displayed a majestic bald eagle with outstretched wings perched upon a bundle of arrows, symbolizing strength and preparedness, and framed by olive branches representing peace. By the time we reached 1978, the Washington quarter had already been in circulation for 46 years and had become one of the most familiar and trusted coins in American pockets. The silver content of the quarter had been removed more than a decade earlier, starting in 1965, when rising silver prices forced the United States Mint to switch from the 90% silver alloy to a copper-nickel clad composition. This change meant that the quarters from 1978 were struck with an inner core of pure copper sandwiched between two layers of a copper-nickel alloy, giving them a total weight of 567 grams and a diameter of 24.3 millimeters. The year 1978 itself was a unique moment in American history. The nation was still feeling the aftereffects of the Vietnam War. The energy crisis of the 1970s was shaping the economy. Inflation was a real concern for families across the country, and cultural shifts were taking place, from the disco craze dominating the music charts to the rise of new political debates. Through all of this, the Washington quarter continued to pass from hand to hand in grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines, and countless small daily transactions. In terms of mintage, the 1978 Washington quarter was produced at two main facilities: the Philadelphia Mint, which struck coins without a mint mark, and the Denver Mint, which used the D mint mark located to the right of Washington's braid on the obverse. Philadelphia produced hundreds of millions of these quarters, while Denver also contributed a substantial mintage, ensuring that the coin was widely available across the country. The high mintage numbers mean that most 1978 quarters in circulates today hold only face value, but for collectors, the true interest lies in finding high-grade uncirculated examples as well as rare errors and varieties. Some of the most sought-after errors for this date include off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing due to a misaligned strike; double dies, where elements like lettering or the date appear doubled; and striking errors such as broad strikes or coins struck on the wrong planche. These error coins can fetch significant prices at auction, depending on the severity and visibility of the flaw. Coins graded at the highest mint state levels, such as MS66 or MS67 by professional grading services, can also command strong premiums, particularly if they exhibit full luster, sharp detail, and no signs of wear. One of the reasons the 1978 Washington quarter is so nostalgic for many Americans is that it represents the final years before the major design and composition changes of the 1980s. While the Washington portrait would remain the same for many more years, the world around the coin was evolving rapidly. By 1979, the Susan B. Anthony dollar would debut, signaling a new era of experimentation in U.S. coinage. And by 1982, changes to the cents composition from copper to copper-plated zinc would mark a broader shift in the metals used for everyday money. For those who lived through the late 70s, the quarter was a constant companion, whether you were feeding it into a payphone to make a call, buying a soda for 25 cents, or playing your favorite song on a jukebox. It had a tangible presence in everyday life that younger generations today may not fully appreciate. Holding a 1978 quarter Now is like holding a small piece of that era, a link to a time when money was physical and tactile, not just numbers on a screen. From a collector's perspective, the 1978 quarter might seem common, but its story is layered with meaning. It is a coin that reflects both continuity and change, a design rooted in the ideals of leadership, liberty, and national pride, yet struck in a period of social and economic uncertainty. The Washington Quarter Series as a whole remains one of the most collected in U.S. numismatics, and the 1978 issue plays its part as a bridge between the early years of the series and the modern clad era. When we look at a 1978 Washington quarter, we are not just seeing metal, we are seeing artistry, history, and the lives of countless Americans who touched and used that coin, from factory workers receiving their wages to children buying candy. It is a witness to millions of personal stories and small moments over decades. Later, collectors still search for pristine examples of this coin, hoping to preserve a flawless version of something that was once so ordinary that no one thought twice about spending it. And in that pursuit, the 1978 Washington quarter continues to live on, not just as currency, but as a piece of American memory, where we take a journey through time, one coin at a time. Today, we explore the fascinating story of the 1981 French 2 francs coin, a small yet powerful piece of French history that carries with it the weight of a nation's cultural pride, economic shifts, and political evolution. This is not just a coin. This is a chapter in the long and rich history of France, and when you hold it in your hand, you hold more than metal. You hold a story that begins centuries before it was minted. To understand the 1981 2 francs coin, we first need to step back into the origins of the franc itself. The franc has a long and storied past, dating back to the late 14th century when King John II of France was captured during the 100 Years' War and a ransom was demanded. The gold franc was first issued in 1360 to help pay that ransom. The name franc itself came from the inscription Francorum Rex, meaning King of the Franks. Over the centuries, the franc became deeply woven into the fabric of French identity, evolving through various political regimes, monarchies, revolutions, and republics. The modern 2 francs coin, as we know it, in 1981, traces its direct lineage to the monetary reforms of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. During the French Revolution, the old royalist currency system was replaced by a decimal system inspired by Enlightenment ideals. The franc became the official currency in 1795, under the French First Republic. This new system made trade easier and symbolized equality and rational governance, something the revolutionaries were eager to promote. The 2 francs denomination became a key part of everyday transactions in France. Through the 19th century, France underwent enormous changes. The Napoleonic Wars spread the franc system across Europe, and French coins often bore the images of emperors or republic symbols, depending on who was in power. The 2 francs coin existed in both silver and later in base metals, reflecting the shifting economic realities. By the late 19th century, under the Third Republic, France standardized its coinage, and the 2 francs coin became an everyday workhorse, used in markets, cafes, and shops from Paris to the smallest rural towns. Fast forward to the 20th century. The franc survived 2 world wars, periods of occupation and liberation, and the dramatic rebuilding of France after 1945. Post-war France experienced rapid modernization and economic growth known as the Trente Glorieuses, the 30 glorious years from 1945 to 1975. This was a time when the French people enjoyed rising living standards, the expansion of consumer goods, and a sense of national pride. In this era, the design of French coins reflected both modernism and tradition. The 2 francs coin carried the image of Marianne, the national symbol of the French Republic, representing liberty, reason, and the values of the nation. Her profile was elegant yet strong, symbolizing the enduring spirit of France. By the time we arrive at 1981, France was experiencing another moment of political and social transition. In May of that year, François Mitterrand was elected president, becoming the first socialist to hold the office in the Fifth Republic. His election brought changes in policy culture and even in the way France thought about itself economically. The late 1970s and early 1980s were challenging for much of the Western world, including France's oil crises, had triggered inflation. Unemployment was rising, and industries were adjusting to global competition. Yet through these changes, the franc remained a constant. in daily life, and the 2 francs coin in particular was still a familiar companion, in pockets, purses, and cash registers. The 1981 2 francs coin was minted in nickel, a practical and durable metal designed to last decades in circulation. Its obverse featured the iconic head of Marianne wearing the Phrygian cap, a hat that had become a revolutionary emblem during the late 18th century. The design was crisp, the facial features confident, and idealized. The reverse side of the coin displayed the denomination 2 francs framed by olive branches and oak leaves, symbols of peace and strength. This combination was deliberate, conveying the dual aspirations of the French Republic to be both a peaceful and resilient nation. What makes the 1981 issue especially interesting to collectors is its place in the broader timeline of French coinage. During the 1980s, discussions were beginning about European integration and the eventual creation of a common currency that would decades later become the euro. Although the euro was still years away, the seeds were already being planted in political and economic discussions. The 2 francs coin of 1981 would therefore become part of the final chapters of the standalone French franc era before it eventually gave way to a shared European identity. In everyday life in 1981, this coin bought you a fresh baguette from a local bakery, a newspaper from a kiosk, or a coffee at the corner cafe. For many French citizens, the 2 francs coin was associated with simple daily pleasures. It was exchanged in open-air markets where farmers sold fresh produce, in metro stations where commuters bought tickets, and in small shops where artisans and merchants carried on centuries-old trades. To hold this coin was to hold a piece of the rhythm of French life. Collectors today look at the 1981 2 francs not only for its monetary history, but for its cultural resonance. Coins from this period often survive in excellent condition due to the durability of nickel, but finding one in uncirculated mint state is still a delight for numismatists. The design by the French engraver Henri Lagriffoul has become one of the most recognized. In modern French coinage, Lagriffoul's portrayal of Marianne is timeless, both a nod to classical art and a representation of modern Republican ideals. The story of this coin is also the story of a country standing between tradition and change. By 1981, France